Hello, House of Hope family. Sorry I'm not able to be there with you this year, but as you all know, Joplin has endured a great tragedy and felt like it was more important for me to be here helping our city recover rather than taking time out to be there. Although I will very much miss being there, worshiping the Lord with you and exploring our nation's capital. On May 22nd, an EF5 tornado ripped through Joplin, splitting our town in half and destroying a third of our town, killing 159 people, and many are still suffering with injuries and still in the hospital fighting for their lives. With a tragedy of this magnitude, it tends to come in waves. The first wave is just the running frantically, the shock, trying to find your loved ones. It's a horrible feeling. It took me 5 hours to locate my father that night, and it's definitely an experience I would not ever want to experience again. The second wave seems to be just the search and rescue for the people that we did not find the night of the tornado, and that went on for a couple of weeks, and I remember just praying that wave would end. It just was horrible. It also creates the sound of an ambulance and a helicopter is just amplified now and provokes an emotion that I hadn't experienced prior to this event. The next wave seemed to be funerals. You couldn't pass a mortuary without seeing a funeral take place, and it just seemed like there were parades of funeral processions all over town, and then that just provokes more sadness and grief, even though you don't necessarily know those people. The next wave that tends to be coming, very big wave coming rapidly, is just the emotional reality of what has taken place, both on an individual basis and as a community as a whole. Just yesterday they have announced that they have linked 3 suicides to the tornado, which I think is just the first signs as to what is to come. One unique opportunity that I have been given is to be the lead for our children and teens in our community, to make sure that they are being thought of and taken care of during this recovery process, to make sure they sit on the committees and have a voice and they are learning from professionals, and just that they are heard, because they will have to carry out whatever plans that we make. The unique thing about that is I've been able to work hand in hand with some FEMA officials from headquarters there in Washington, D.C., and it's been real interesting because they have been able to see a vast difference between the way Joplin has encountered this traumatic event versus other communities that have encountered events like this. And so I've had a voice in that, and one of the things that I had the opportunity to do is go to dinner with 2 ladies from Washington, D.C., and their question just over and over again is what's different? What's different about Joplin and how they're handling this situation? And of course I talked about the heartland and hard work and resilience and all, and then finally I was able just to look at them and say, do you want the truth? And they said, of course we do. And so I was able to share with them just the deep faith that the people in this community have, and how we live in the Bible Belt, and I often say that Joplin is the buckle, and this is where it all snaps together. And so that says a lot about our people, in that we draw our strength and our comfort from God. And they just sat there and took it all in, and I joked a bit and said, I'm not sure you can bottle that and give that to the next disaster, because missionaries have been trying to do that for years, but they were very intrigued by that. It also led to a conversation. One of the FEMA ladies that's been here for a couple of weeks, it just feels like God has really pursued her heart while she's here, and I was able to have that conversation with her, and I just shared with her a little bit about that, and then I was able to share with her 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4, where it talks about God is a God of comfort, and He comforts us in a time of trouble, and then therefore we are able to comfort others during their time of trouble. And I said, that's what Joplin has to offer the next disaster, and she absolutely agreed. One of the unique challenges that we're facing right now is the fact that post-traumatic stress shows itself 3 months from a horrific event. In 3 months, almost to the day, our children are going to be going back to school for their first day of school. They won't be going back to their normal classrooms and their normal school buildings because 10 of our schools were damaged or destroyed. Therefore, FEMA is bringing in modular classrooms that will be put on different locations for them to attend, and we're even having to remodel one of our empty retail stores at the mall for our juniors and seniors to attend school there, providing a very unique and bizarre atmosphere for them. There are concerns that it will increase shoplifting. There are concerns for their safety, just because it's such a public place. They will have lunch in the food court, and so there's just some concerns there with just the opportunities that are present themselves with the kids being at the mall during school hours. One of the biggest challenges that we're facing as a whole and as a school district is obviously many jobs were lost because businesses were destroyed. But then for the school district piece, it's just how many kids will be returning on that first day of school. 54% of our student body lived in the tornado zone, and so many of those families have moved to outlying communities and even out of state. One of the challenges is knowing how many teachers to really keep on staff. One school in particular just had some damage, but 80% of their student body was in the tornado zone, and so the school is trying to keep all of those teachers, but really won't know until the first couple of weeks of how many of those students will be returning. With great tragedy comes great opportunity, and so House of Hope Joplin as a whole, with the board sitting down and trying to figure out what is our role in the community during this time. Obviously the tornado changes everything, and so there are many opportunities for us to serve our teens and serve our community during this time. One of the things we would like to do is to be able to offer free counseling to teens and their families for the next year. The families have lost everything. Sure, they have insurance money, but everything has been altered, and so we want to offer that to them for free. We also have a great team of 8 counselors and mentors that we would like to go into the school district, partner with the Bridge, Young Life, the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, and area youth groups, and offer grief groups type settings. We feel with teens, as you all know, they like to have their friends next to them. That's really who they like to talk to, and so if we can offer a group setting for them to come and just process what they've endured and the loss of their friends and family members and their homes and their schools, then we feel like that would be very effective. Prior to the tornado, House of Hope Joplin had grown to the point of needing a full-time counselor, and since the tornado, it's just absolute. We have to have one, and so we are seeking funding opportunities right now to try to accomplish that goal. Another thing that the tornado changed drastically is the way we are able to do our fundraising for the rest of the year. We had already started planning our second annual Great Race for this fall, but feel like that it's inappropriate to do an event like that and try to raise sponsorship during this time. We also had hoped to kick off a capital campaign this fall, and then also feel like it's just not the right time. Our community can't receive that at this time. So we are seeking other ways to try to fund all of these opportunities. One is we've applied for a grant for tornado relief funds to specifically offer these services to teens. We were just awarded a grant for $25,000 if we can match that money within 90 days. So by October 10th, we are going to attempt to raise $25,000 to be able to offer those services to the teens and the families of our communities. Before I go, I just want to share some cool little stories that happened the night of the tornado. It seems like an oxymoron, but it's very much a reality. I've said since then I am so frustrated that I'm so cynical and have little faith like children do, because our children of our community were blessed by the Lord to be able to see angels all around town, and there's just story after story of them, seeing them walking down the streets, seeing them protecting children, other children themselves. So I just want to share a couple of those because God is good even in the midst of this, and this is one way that He has allowed us to see a bit of His glory. One of the stories is there was a 4-year-old little boy who was taken from his home and placed probably 4 or 5 blocks from where he lived. And afterwards he was asked, what was that like? What happened? And he said, well, an angel just came and picked me up and carried me and set me back down. And so just the reality that he was held by an angel during that time. Another story is of a mom who was in a car with her daughter, and as the tornado was bearing down, she realized that they would not be able to survive in her car, and so they jumped out and ran over in the grass by the road, and the mom laid over the girl, and at one point she looked up and there was a car just tumbling straight towards her, and so she hunkered down, just with the expectation of being crushed by this car that was coming their way, and seconds later was fine, and after the tornado just couldn't believe that they had survived that. And a couple days later she was telling a friend the story, and her little girl was standing there holding her hand, and as the mom had told the story and just not understanding why the car hadn't crushed them, the little girl looked up and said, "Well, Mom, that big white butterfly man grabbed the car and threw it." And the mom was like, "What? What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, right before it hit us, the big white butterfly man grabbed the car and just shoved it away from us and saved our lives." And another one is a similar situation. A dad ran out into the yard to get his kids in before the tornado hit, and they didn't have time, so he threw them on the ground and laid over them. And he just felt the pull and the tug of the tornado and really expected to be sucked up into it. And later in the conversation and asking or not understanding again why he wasn't sucked up in the tornado, one of the kids said, "Well, there was a white butterfly in your back holding you down." And I mean, just account after account of that stuff going on all over town. And it's just incredible to know that we do have angels protecting us, that we have just God looking out for us. Anybody that has been to town and drives through the 14-mile strip of land where this tornado ripped through just over and over again does not understand why thousands and thousands of people weren't killed. And stories of people being in their closet or their bathtub, and literally that's the only thing standing from the structure of their home is that one little closet they were in. And so we know that God is good, and He makes good from tragedy, and He is already about that work and showing us glimpses of that. Again, I ask that you would keep the people of Joplin in your prayers during our time of healing and rebuilding. FEMA has told us that it'll take 2 to 3 years for Joplin to rebuild, and we are trying to find the glimpses of joy in that rather than the grief. I ask that you would continue to pray for House of Hope Joplin and just our role to our community and how we can serve them and the teens of this community the best during this time, and just pray that God would provide $25,000 within the 90 days and that He would reveal His will. There's great opportunity for us in this time, just showing the FEMA lady our plans for building our property, and she gets excited and says, "Oh, that's going to happen soon." And so she can see it, and just pray that the people of the community would see that, and that it would just happen naturally in the rebuilding time, rather than forced, that God would surprise us rather than having to do a capital campaign, that He would just bless us immensely during this time, that we would be able just to build as Joplin rebuilds, and it would be a natural fit, and it would naturally, the community would just accept that. I am so sorry that I'm not there with you. I hate not seeing you. I hate not getting to visit with you and hear all the cool things that God's doing with your local houses of hope. I just pray that you will have a blessed time together, and God would reveal His will for all of you individually. I love you, and hope that you just have a great week.